there's in my career field, there's not that many of us. And so when I lose a performer, any of them, it's just like, what are we doing this for?
Yeah. I guess kind of traversing into the DEI stuff that followed suit afterwards, were there significant policies that impacted or were enforced by your leadership that kind of compromised your guys' morale and
So the whole like women thing in the special operations world was big around that time as well, I believe. And the special tactics officer community decided to hire a female to become a special tactics officer. And so the way it works on the officer side, so on the enlisted side, like we have a list of things that we have to do throughout the pipeline, and if you don't accomplish those tasks, you're out. It's very black and white. On the officer side, they do not have that list. They just have like a pretty broad, it's weird. So we had a female, and it's not all her fault, right? But like they pushed her through the pipeline. She failed multiple times, and the Air Force Special Operations commander basically pushed her through our pipeline and made her a special tactics officer. And that was a big thing on social media, and everybody knew that she didn't pass everything. Which in my mind, you're just hosing all the females that are coming behind you, because there's no females now that are going to be in our community that anyone's going to just take without question. So that happened. That was probably the big thing that happened, where people were like, man, like the Air Force Spec Ops has gone woke and all that other stuff, just like everybody else, right? We had the female Rangers. I don't know, did any of the SEALs ever make it?
No, there was two to my knowledge that attempted, or that at least made it into the initial pipeline. Now, keep in mind, like back when I went through, it was quite different. There wasn't this prep phase that there is now, because now, like, you go through boot camp with only SEAL, EOD, SWIC, type of candidates, diver, I think. So you're all in the same division. You do accelerated advanced workouts. They're a little harder on you as far as the physical stuff goes, and it's more geared towards that pipeline. And then from there, you go right across the street, stay at Great Lakes for, I think, a couple of months and do BUDS prep. And so I believe one female, and I'm probably going to skewer this, I don't think either of them actually even made it to day one of actual BUDS training.
Right.
It was sometime between either BUDS prep and or INDOC, where both of them quit and didn't do it. One of them was a really good lacrosse player, I think, and I think the other one was maybe a track athlete, perhaps. But yeah, that, to my knowledge, that's the only two that have ever even tried to get into the pipeline. And like I said, neither of them even made it to day one. But
we stole that prep course.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
that's good.
We went out there and saw it, and it was super good. And of course, we took it back to the Air Force and messed it all up.
Well, I think it's good, but to me, the biggest question that I think is begged to be asked is, does it actually matter? Is the graduation rate any higher because of it? And I believe that the short answer is not really. And I tend to think that, there's only so many human beings, that genetically, the combination of genetics, of upbringing, of environmental exposure, training, experiences, et cetera, that all kind of convey together to be, or conjoin rather together to be that perfect storm of everything needed to make it. And I think, not to get too far in the weeds scientifically, but if you think about it from kind of a evolutionary biology standpoint, I think, any species on Earth, like, their primary goal is to perpetuate itself, the survivability of a species. And when you have a component of that genetic makeup that lacks self-preservation, that doesn't lend itself to the survivability of a species, So I think it only stands to reason is that no matter what you do to try to recruit, to prepare, whatever leg up or preparation you can provide for individuals, there are just only so many people that have all of the things that need to be there in a manner or degree with which they need to be there for them to be successful. And I think this is a kind of a classic example of that. But are there any more women now in your field that that you know of?
Yes, and at least, yeah, the ones that have actually made it, and we try not to like advertise it too much. And I'm being cagey because I don't want to burn anybody because in my career field, what my career field became, the special reconnaissance career field, I think there is some value in having a female, right? I think the agencies and some of the tier ops have proven that there's some value in having females, in certain situations. One of the things that happened was though, like she, at least one of them, like she made it, and then the folks in the Air Force wanted to like run news stories about it, and I'm like, absolutely not, like don't put this person's face on camera. What if she wants to assess for the next level or get involved in some of these programs? But she actually met all the standards, but only one that I know of.
Well, so I guess my follow-on question to that would be, within the Air Force, at least from your experience in the areas that you were in, did the what is a woman component come into that? Because, I mean, I know there were parts of the military, even the SEAL teams, where there, I believe there's active duty transgender SEALs, and or at least one, I think. I could be wrong, but if anybody knows for sure, feel free to throw that shit in the comments. But to me, if that enters into the equation, then it's kind of like, well, what fucking difference does it make then?
Yep.
Like if it's not a biological box that's being checked and it's a preference or a decision, whatever you want to call it, then who gives a shit? Like, did you guys run into any of that?
Not really. Not in our community specifically. But it was funny. I think last June or whatever, and June is always a shit show online for obvious reasons. The Cannon Air Force Base folks like put out a video on Instagram of some trans person doing their job, and then they limited the comments on Instagram, and they're an official government Instagram whatever account. And it's like that, you can't do that. That's illegal for you to limit comments on an official government account.
I didn't know.
And we tried to get them called out. Yeah, and one of the One's Ready hosts, Aaron, he called them and tried to suss it out. And it's like, you can't limit comments on this, guys, because it's like you can see like Instagram post, comments open, blah 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 blah, and then this one they limit the comments. It's like, you can't say that here, and it's like, we absolutely can, and you're not allowed legally to say we can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big things. It's like, man, let people live how they live, but like, I don't think the trans thing should happen in the military for obvious reasons, like, well, a lot of reasons. But B, if you think it's right and you're posting about it, that you're going to have to hear about it.
Yeah.
The general public's opinion on what the military is doing.
Yeah. I think even more than that is that if you think that that's right and you're behind it, you should be able to be questioned, and you should have to be able to defend your position on it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that's lacking in the military. And I understand from a chain of command and authority standpoint, there is a certain level of you have to do what you're told. I mean, if you have a mutinous military that has the ability and kind of autonomy to question every single fucking decision or command, directive, order, et cetera, then it's pretty tough to have a military that's worth a shit that way when you have 1,000 individual thinkers that all have an opinion that has to be heard. So, I mean, obviously that's not going to work. However, you need to be able to question some things, and I think that's a good example. But did you guys have any negative impacts, like within the Air Force soft community across the board, whether it's PJs, CCTs, whatever? Has there been any trans candidates or anything like that?
Not that I know of. No. I mean, we'll get questions every once in a while, like DMs on Instagram. Yeah. The One's Ready guys, like, hey, I'm a blah blah blah, whatever it is. Like, am I going to be able to join? It's like, man, it's like, go to the recruiter. Yeah. Good luck. Like, you're just trying to start an argument with me over the trans issue. But if you really want to join, these are the things you got to do, and you're going to have a pile of waivers just to get in but. Like our course is obviously gender neutral, our bathroom stalls are all like walled off and all this other stuff, and people aren't allowed or supposed to walk around naked anymore. Like all these things. And so if you really think that you can make it, go ahead and try. But most of the time they're just trying to start fights.
What do you personally think about that?
The whole trans thing, or?
Yeah. Like if somebody says, yeah, I identify as the opposite of what I was born biologically. Do you think that they should be allowed to go through the pipeline and test and identify that way? Like,
No.
can you?
I mean, if you just say it, then who cares, as long as you're still using the correct bathroom or whatever. But like if you're get on hormones and all this other crap and like medically, like how would you vet that person through the process medically? Yeah. And the whole female thing too, it's kind of all the same to me. Like how much money are we going to spend to try to cater to this tiny population of people that, somebody in Congress says wants to be part of this crew?
Yeah.
For every male candidate we get, there's like 100 male candidates behind them that, we invested a certain amount of money in that didn't make it or whatever it is. When you go all the way through the process, Alpha to Zulu, right? So like for every female candidate we get, how much money did we spend trying to get that one person in? How much money did we spend on our facilities, and there's not that many females or trans people or any of this other stuff that want to do this type of work.
Yeah.
And the people that are pushing it also don't want to do this type of work. So why are you telling us how to do our jobs better?
Yeah. Do you, I mean, it's going to be an assumption on your part, but like, could you put a percentage on the number of people in the special operations community in the Air Force that would accept a transgender? Do you think it's extremely low?
Yeah, and I would guess that most of the people that would say that they would accept it are off team or in the officer corps.
Yeah.
So you're always going to get some of your senior NCOs that become careerists, and some of the officers that aren't actually going to have to deal with it. That would probably say it. I'm not sure if they would believe it at all either, but yeah, of course we would accept that, and as long as they meet the standards. And it's like, man, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Well,
I think the one of the very few simplicities of the military that exists almost nowhere else that I can think of is because it's not a business, right? You're not looking at, spreadsheets or balance sheets or profit and loss statements to determine whether or not a unit is successful. Definitely not. It's a budget. Here's what you get. Success is measured on operational efficiency and competency. And so to me, you have a very unique liberty in the military to base your decision-making process off of one simple question, which is, does this make us a better warfighting force? Yep. The answer is yes, and you can afford it, you do it. If it's no, then you just don't. And to me, that's really, from my perspective, the broader question of transgender soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines is, does the accommodations made, the distractions, the conflict that having forces that are already existing who are very resistant to having that and understanding the level of distraction that would take place if you, whether it's a SEAL team, a Ranger battalion, a pararescue unit, what have you, if you have a, biological man who identifies as a woman, dresses as a woman, refers to themselves as a woman, wants accommodations made as though they're a woman, like that by itself negates, in my opinion, like for the maybe single-digit number of people that would make it through training, like what they're going to bring value add-wise to the military is so astronomically low when you contrast it to the distraction and the headache and the pain in the ass that's going to bring in trying to integrate them in. It's a very easy decision for me to say, no, it's not a good idea.
Yep. Well, I thought this all kind of started about other things, right? Like the don't ask, don't tell policy I thought was pretty good. And before I go any further, I want to say, like, I don't give a shit about what anybody wants to do as long as they're not hurting somebody else, right? Yeah. And this always gets conflated with like, oh, you're anti blah blah blah.
Or phobic.
I don't care, and yeah, I'm not phobic about much of anything, especially if you're a human. If you're a spider, it might be a different story. When you walk through that spider web in the middle of the night out there in the field, it's not great.
Have you seen arachnophobia?
You're right, exactly. But I'm not scared of trans people, and I don't care what you do. But when you want to be part of a warfighting community, like you said, like, are you bringing value? Are you making it easier? And the answer is no.
Yeah,
absolutely not.